In this video, I will show you the full process of how I make a panettone the traditional way. For an easier recipe and faster process, click on the link on top to watch my chocolate panettone recipe. Start this recipe at least 3 days ahead. We're gonna create a Lievito Madre, which is an Italian sourdough starter. It is a little bit different than the regular sourdough starter. This is a lower hydration starter that takes more care than a regular starter, and the final flavor is less acidic and well worth it. Using a regular sourdough starter, we're gonna create a stiff starter combining 30 grams or 2 tablespoons of water with 30 grams or 2 tablespoons of sourdough starter and 60 grams or half a cup of bread flour. Combine the ingredients well and let it proof at room temperature for 8 hours. After 8 hours, repeat the same process using the same amounts of ingredients and start from the starter you just made. Repeat this process every 8 hours for 2 days for a total of 6 refreshments. You can do one refreshment in the morning, another in the afternoon, and the next one at night before going to bed. We're doing refreshments every 8 hours to have a very active Lievito Madre. On the third day, we're gonna change the refreshments a little bit. First of all, we're gonna give our starter a bath in 1 liter or 4 cups of water at 80 degrees Fahrenheit or 26 degrees Celsius. We're doing this to reduce the acidity in our starter. So, add 3 grams or half a tablespoon of sugar to the water and place the sourdough starter in the water. Leave the sourdough in the water for 15 minutes. By doing this, the bad microorganisms are gonna come out of the yeast and feed on sugar so we can have pure yeast after the bath. Take the sourdough yeast out of the water and press it firmly to remove all the water. Keep half of the sourdough to start your Lievito Madre and keep the other half to continue feeding it and making more Lievito Madre. Now combine 30 grams or 2 tablespoons of the starter with 30 grams or 2 tablespoons of water and 60 grams or half a cup of bread flour. Mix the ingredients well and knead them with your hands. Take your rolling pin and start rolling your dough on your working table at least 3 times. Do this to add enough strength to your Lievito Madre. Then roll the Lievito Madre up very firmly and place it in a glass container. Add enough water at 80 degrees Fahrenheit or 26 degrees Celsius to cover the Lievito Madre and let it proof in a warm place at around 78 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit or 25 to 28 degrees Celsius for about 4 hours. After 4 hours, your Lievito Madre should have almost doubled in size and it should be floating in the water container. Now, place the Lievito Madre on a strainer to discard all the water and repeat the same process. This time, you want to add the whole Lievito Madre and add 50 grams or 3 tablespoons and 1 teaspoon of water and 100 grams or 1 cup of flour. You will need a bigger container this time to place your Lievito Madre in. Then, let the Lievito Madre proof at the same temperature for 4 hours. After 4 hours, do the final refreshment. This time, add 80 grams or a third of a cup of water and 160 grams or 1 1/4 cups of flour. Make sure to roll the dough many times to add the final strength to the Lievito Madre and place it in a bigger container. Let it proof for 4 hours. After 4 hours, place the Lievito Madre in a strainer to discard all the water and set it aside to drain. Then start the first dough of your panettone. In the bowl of a stand mixer, combine 300 grams or 1 1/4 cups of water. Add 165 grams or 7/8 of a cup of sugar and 600 grams or 4 3/4 cups of flour. Use the hook attachment to mix all the ingredients well until they are just combined, and add 150 grams or 2/3 of a cup of Lievito Madre. Mix well until the Lievito Madre is incorporated in the dough. Then add a mix of 180 grams or 3/4 cups of butter at room temperature, cut in pieces, and 150 grams or about 9 egg yolks. Mix well with a whisk in a separate bowl, incorporating 1 yolk at a time until you have a very emulsified solution. Add the emulsion of butter and egg yolks little by little as you keep kneading the dough in the stand mixer. Knead the dough until it starts to pull off the walls of the bowl for about 20 minutes. Take it out of the bowl and finish kneading by hand as you stretch and fold it on itself. When the dough is shiny and elastic, place it in a greased bowl. Cover it with a plastic wrap and let it rest overnight in a warm place. I am placing it in my dough proofer at 80 degrees Fahrenheit or 26 degrees Celsius overnight for about 10 to 12 hours, or until it triples in size. The next morning, place the dough in your stand mixer and add 150 grams or 1 cup of bread flour and knead it in your stand mixer until the flour is well incorporated with the dough. Then, prepare the aromatics for the dough. Get a vanilla pod and extract all the vanilla beans by cutting the pod in half and using your knife to remove the vanilla beans. Add 260 grams or 1 cup of mandarin paste and all of the vanilla beans. To make the mandarin paste, simply cut 4 small mandarins in cubes and place them in a pot with 110 grams or half a cup of sugar. Mix the ingredients well and let the mandarins rest for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, the mandarins should release their natural juices. So, cook them at low heat and let them simmer for about 40 minutes or until all the juice is reduced. Then, blend them well until you get a paste texture and place it in a glass container. You can make this ahead of time and place it in the fridge until you need it. You can also use lemons or oranges if you don't have mandarins, but my favorite paste for panettone is mandarin. Start your stand mixer and mix until the paste is incorporated in the dough. Then, add an emulsion of 100 grams or 1/4 of a cup of butter at room temperature and 115 grams or 6 egg yolks. Knead the ingredients in the dough. Then add 130 grams or 2/3 of a cup of sugar, 8 grams or 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and 30 grams or 4.5 teaspoons of honey. Knead all the ingredients well until you have a dough that is elastic and shiny like this one. Then You can add 335 grams or 2¼ cups of raisins that I soaked one day before with a cup of rum and 1 cup of water. You can use any liquid you prefer to soak your raisins. Add 155 grams or 1½ cups of candied peels of orange and lemon. I prepared mine myself 3 days ago by peeling 4 oranges and 4 lemons and cutting the peels in small strips, then boiling the peels in 2 different containers for 5 minutes to soften the peels and reduce their acidity. After boiling them, rinse them with cold water and boil them again. Finally, cook them on a low heat in 120 grams or ½ cup of water and 70 grams or 1/3 cup of sugar. Let them simmer until all the syrup reduces for about 20 minutes. And then place them on a cooling rack to air dry for about 6 hours at room temperature. Or if you have a dehydrator, like me, speed up the process at your preferred temperature for about 2 to 3 hours. Mix the dough until all the dry fruits are well incorporated. Divide the dough into 2 equal pieces using a scale and pre-shape it by forming 2 balls with the help of a dough scraper. Cover the dough with a towel for about 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, transfer the dough to 2 panettone large molds. Then, let the panettone proof for about 4 hours or until the dough reaches the edge of the paper molds. Score the panettones with a bread knife. And place a piece of butter on top. Bake the panettones at 330 degrees Fahrenheit or 165 degrees Celsius for about 50 minutes. Take your panettones out of the oven. As soon as you take them out, place a couple of skewers in the base of your panettones and hang them upside down overnight. You can use a pot with a couple of wooden spoons to hang your panettones or whatever you have at your disposal. This step is crucial so your panettones keep their form and the bread doesn't sink in. The next morning, remove the skewers and cut the panettones. This is my favorite Christmas bread. The flavor and texture doesn't compare at all to the ones you buy in the store. The texture is very light and fluffy, and the flavor is very fruity and delicious. The perfect bread to celebrate Christmas. Enjoy! I really hope you get to try this panettone. This bread is delicious and I know you're gonna love it. Please like this video and share it with your family and friends. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I have a new recipe every week. Thank you for watching.